Is this thing on? Today, I'm gonna be interviewing my grandma about her childhood and growing up around the United Farm Workers strike. First question, what is your name?
My name's Delilah Pacina. I'm Nathan's grandmother from his mom's side.
Where were you born?
I was born in Delano, California. I was born in 1960. And I grew up in McFarland, California, which is 7 miles away from Delano.
All right, now I can start asking you from the list of questions I came up with. Question number one, what was daily life like for you as an 8-year-old working out in the fields, and what kind of work did you do?
Well, we'd wake up early in the morning. It would still be dark outside, and it would be my mom and all my brothers and sisters, and we would make lunch before we would leave to work. And our lunch was homemade flour tortillas, because back then they didn't have store-bought flour tortillas, so we made homemade flour tortillas. And we would make scrambled eggs with chorizo and make it into a burrito, and everybody would just have one burrito, and that was our lunch. And we would all jump into my mom's station wagon, and we would go to the fields, and we would start. It was usually we would work in the grapes. And when we were there working, it was very hot, and you didn't have breaks, and you just had to pick. And the boxes were probably about this big, this wide, and about this thick. And we were given like it was like a little sharp knife, and you would just pull the grapes and you would cut them, and they would fall into the box, and you would fill the whole box with grapes. And as you're picking, there's a lot of spiders in there, there's a lot of mice, there's rats, sometimes there were snakes, and you just had to just hurry up and do your whole roll. You would have a long, the rolls would be probably about a half a mile long each, and everybody would pick, and that's what we would get paid by every box. It was just cents. I don't even know how much cents it was, but we barely made anything when we worked out there. And that's what we would do every day. It was hot, there was no bathrooms, and they would have water sometimes, and we would do that until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then we'd go home and rest and get ready for the next day. And that was what our daily life was for every summer. And it wasn't just the grapes. If we didn't work in the grapes, we also worked in tomatoes, onions, potatoes, we chopped cotton that was cutting the weeds out of the cotton fields, and we also raked almonds, and sometimes we would work in the raisins. It was the same thing. You would pick your grapes, and then you would lay a paper out, and then you would put the grapes on top of this brown paper, and you would just leave the grapes there so they could turn into raisins. And that's what we did.
Were there any moments or events related to the strike that stuck with you?
Yes. One time we were working out in the field, and the farmer, the grape farmer, he needed workers because all his workers were striking out on the street. And so my dad was a security guard there, and so he got me and my sister, and there's these other two kids with us, which were the contractor's kids. So we were all working together picking grapes. And so my dad comes and he says, "Hey, if you guys hear any gunfire, you need to lay down and don't move, and we'll come and get you, but just stay laying down on the ground if you hear any gunfire." And so we had to stop working. And so about an hour later, my dad came and he told us that it was okay, it was safe for us. And then we started picking the grapes, and then he just said, if we hear any more gunfire, if we were to hear any, just to lay flat and he'd come and get us. And so that day we did finish working, but we never went back again because he thought that it was too dangerous for us to be out there working, because they were striking and it was getting violent out there because we could hear people screaming out in the streets. But I guess they were mainly working, they were yelling at the ones that were working out in the fields where that was us, but we were just little kids and we were told by our parents what to do. And we were there to really just work for the summer to earn money for our school clothes. And the people that were striking, they were the ones that were actually striking because they needed higher wages, because that's how they made their living. You know, they paid their bills and they bought their food picking grapes, but we were just there for the summer to work for our school clothes. And so later on, I started realizing that we were probably the wrong ones on the wrong side of history, because we were working against the strikers instead of working with them. But we were working with the rich farm growers, and I didn't realize that till later on. And that's what I remember about that.
Did you understand what was happening with the strike, or was it more something you just saw happening around you?
I really didn't understand what was happening, because we were just told what to do. And when my dad said, you go work, you went and you worked. And we did see it a lot on the news, but I really just didn't understand. I had grandparents that made a living working out in the fields, and I think it was harder for them, but I really just didn't understand everything that was happening.
How did your parents or caregivers balance work and ensuring you kids were safe and cared for?
Well, my parents, they worked all the time. Both of them had full-time jobs, and they were both hard jobs. My dad was, when I was younger, he was a mechanic, so he worked as a mechanic fixing cars. And my mom, she worked at a packing shed packing oranges. And so we went to school, and when we got out of school, we came home, and there was really nobody there, but we were always told what to do. We would come home, clean the house, cook, and got things ready for my mom and dad. So when they came home, the food was ready, and they would just rest and get ready for the next day. And we really just took care of ourselves. And in the summertime, when we worked in the summertime out in the field, so it was almost like the same thing. Like, we really just had parents working all the time, and we knew what our job was to do every day, and we just did it. And that's just the way it was back then.
Looking back, how do you feel about growing up in that environment?
I feel that my childhood was hard. Everybody had to do their part, and you had to grow up fast, and that's just the way life was back then. And you didn't have a choice, but you just did whatever your parents told you to do. And so that's the way it was.
Did you have any role models or people who inspired you during that time?
Later on, I would have to say my mom. My mom was always a hard worker. She worked all her life. And so when she worked she packed oranges at a packing shed, and she worked there for 17 years. And then finally she decided that she didn't want to work there anymore, because actually my dad had left my mom for a while. And so when he had left her, she got very angry, because she felt like she had worked so hard to keep this family, to keep us, like, you know, fed and taken care of. So when he left her, she got very angry. And so she came home and she said, I quit my job, and I'm going to college, and I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to get a degree, and I'm going to start teaching. And so she did. She quit her job right there, and she went to Cal State, Bakersfield, and she went and she got her degree in bachelor, what is it called? To become a teacher. Well, she became a teacher, and she graduated with her BA, and she became a teacher for the Delano High School. And so that's where she she changed her life, and so I always looked at her as a role model, because after that she encouraged all of us to go to college and do something with our lives. And I did. I graduated, I got my high school diploma, and then I went on to college, and so I felt like she's the one that I would give my credit to her.
And that is all the questions I have. Thank you, Grandma, for answering all those. And this is my English project. Thank you for listening.